I've had a lot of requests to do the band Toad the Wet Sprocket on my request form, and in a lot of ways they shared some similarities with the other 90s alternative rockers live, who I've done a whole video on. The link is down below. Today, let's explore the history of Toad the Wet Sprocket. The LA Times perfectly summarized the band's outlook on music, saying they are, and I quote, more likely to chase ideals than the trappings of fame. Hailing from Santa Barbara, the band had a pretty drama-free life, unlike their contemporaries. They came from white-collar backgrounds, and the members attended St. Marcos High School, meeting in drama class, before finally forming in 1986. Their lineup was made up of singer and rhythm guitarist Glen Phillips, guitarist Todd Nichols, bassist Dean Dinning, and drummer Randy Guss. Another alumni of their high school was model Kathy Ireland. I've actually done a whole video on how punk rocker Henry Rollins was so irritated by Kathy Ireland, he got himself banned from The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. The link to that video is down below. The quartet's name would be influenced by a Monty Python skit named Rock Notes from their Contractual Obligations album. The skit would see a newscaster reading news about fictional band names, and one of the band names was Toad the Wet Sprocket, and by the band's own admission, the name was supposed to be temporary, and while the members didn't seem too crazy about the name, it endured during their entire career. Eric Idle, who performed the sketch and wrote it, reflected on the band's name, saying, "I once wrote a sketch about rock musicians, and I was trying to think of a name that would be so silly, nobody would ever use it, or dream it could ever be used. So I wrote the words Toad the Wet Sprocket, and after a few years, I was driving along the freeway in LA, and a song came on the radio, and the DJ said, that was by Toad the Wet Sprocket, and I nearly drove off the freeway, he'd remember." The band even made Rolling Stone magazine's list of worst band names. And Toad the Wet Sprocket's influences would include R.E.M., U2, and the Waterboys. They were sometimes labeled as a thinking man's band. And Toad the Wet Sprocket's first gig would take place in September of 1986 at an open mic talent contest at a local restaurant, which they lost. But that loss would spur the band to improve and play more gigs. By the time the band started gigging around Santa Barbara, a lot of other bands would be paid in beer, but since the quartet were below the legal drinking age, according to an interview they did with VH1, they were paid in free peanuts, and sometimes an occasional frozen burrito was thrown in. And much of Toad's early success was due to friend Brad Knack, who guitarist Todd Nichols would tell the LA Times. He used to be in the band called The Tan, and he came to see us one night. He liked us and introduced us to a friend of his, Chris Blake, who was looking for a band to manage. They helped us record the demos that became our first release, Bread and Circus. We did the whole thing for $650. Their self-produced record would be put out on their own label, known as Abe's Records. But it wasn't until they started working on their second album, known as Pale, that a bidding war ensued between different record labels. MCA was so enthralled with the band that they offered them $1 million advance. But the band was pretty business savvy. They knew that that advance would have to be paid back in record sales, and they didn't think they were that capable of selling that many records so early in their career. So they decided to sign with somebody else, and that would be Sony Records. Columbia would re-release Bread and Circus at the band's request to have no alterations or remixing done on the record. The band, in the meantime, finished their second record, Pale, which was done on a shoestring budget of about $6,000. Pale would also result in the band's first charting single, Come Back Down, which peaked at number 27 on the rock charts in America, and they also shot a music video which got some airplay on MTV's show 120 Minutes. That minor success with their first big single of their career wouldn't result in a lot of album sales though. The band seemed to be ignored by the mainstream press because, let's face it, they were boring compared to other alternative rock bands, and some considered them to be uncool. They weren't picking fights with other groups or Ticketmaster or even having substance abuse issues. That didn't really matter to Toad the Wet Sprocket because they built up a following through a grueling tour schedule. Bassist Dean Dinning would tell the Baltimore Sun in 1991, "We'd started a mailing list on the first record where people could sign up for free, and we'd send out little cards saying where we'd be playing. We had toured so much that we had a little following in a lot of places that we played. So through touring, by Christmas time, the record had come out in August, we had broken the 100,000 mark in sales just by touring," he'd say. The band's third album, Fear, would afford the band a bigger budget to experiment with in the studio and flesh out their songs. And released in the summer of 1991, Fear wouldn't peak until September of 92 on the Billboard charts at number 49. Ahead of releasing the band's big singles, All I Want and Walk on the Ocean, the band instead opted to release the song Hold Her Down as one of the album's first singles, which sparked a bit of controversy. Hold Her Down would be the band's commentary on violence against women, and some radio stations and listeners complained about the track, with frontman Glen Phillips telling the LA Times in 1992, "There was a lot of debate about it in the band, whether it would be exploitative to have it as a single, whether it would be useful. More than anything, I was scared of it not being understood. It's a weird song because it's visceral." But that song was a little different from most of their tracks. Toad the Wet Sprocket would write songs on a more personal level, but also struggle with identifying how they could use their platform to spread awareness about issues close to them. The band would support women's pro-choice movements in addition to Rock the Vote and Amnesty International. Following the disappointing performance of Hold Her Down, the band's label opted to release 2 more singles, one in All I Want and the other, Walk on the Ocean, and they would also have crossover appeal, both charting in the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts. One thing that may surprise you guys is that All I Want almost never made the record. According to the band's collection songbook, guitarist Todd Nichols would reveal it almost didn't make it on the record. "We really didn't like it very much, and it was hard to get in tune. It wasn't until it finally was mixed down that it took the shape that worked, but up until that point, we didn't even know where it was going to go. It was very surprising that it turned out to be a hit," he'd say. According to the fansite Fritanic, the band's label almost never released All I Want. After the recording of Fear was done, the label only wanted 14 tracks to properly be mixed, and then wanted to narrow it down to 12 from there. On the chopping block was All I Want. The label thought that they'd maybe release it down the road on a separate album. Frontman Glen Phillips would tell Stereogum, "As we got closer to releasing All I Want, they wanted a big name to remix it, and the videos were expensive. The videos were costing more than the album cost. And when we finally put that out, it was kind of a surprise how it took off. And once again, even though radio formats were really different, there was an alternative radio at that point. There wasn't even a word for it. They were calling it postmodern, post-pop, college music. They didn't have a term for it, so formats were really shifting quickly, and yeah, a lot changed really fast, and we benefited from that change." He would reveal how the band thought of themselves as an indie act and had one thing in common with big bands like Pearl Jam or Nirvana, who tried to distance themselves from their big hit songs, as some people back then thought that being on a major label meant that you had a credibility problem. Phillips would tell Stereogum, "There was a period when, I think it was in Tower Records Pulse magazine, we were the punchline in every column for everything that was wrong with major labels, taking over college music and then pulling all the soul out of it," he'd say. It probably didn't help that the band's music was also heavily licensed in TV shows, appearing on the Friends soundtrack and the show Doogie Howser, to name a few. To support the album, the band would embark on a blistering 283-day tour. And as Toad the Wet Sprocket turned their attention to their 4th record, they seemed to have a good relationship with their label, revealing to the Baltimore Sun how the label didn't even hear the demos for their 4th record and just let them go straight into the studio. Inspired by Don Quixote, the band's 4th album, named Dulcinea, would be named after Quixote's unseen muse. Phillips would explain to the LA Times the main inspiration and meaning behind the album's title, saying, "It's like an allegory for faith. I see Quixote's illusion as symbolizing believing in something and trying to move forward. Movement is better than sitting around wishing there was something to be excited about," he'd say. The band wanted the record to be more representative of the group's live sound, so they focused less on overdubs, fewer layers, and window dressing. And Dulcinea would serve as the band's 2nd album to go platinum, producing 2 hit singles with Something's Always Wrong and Fall Down. The video for Something's Always Wrong took a swipe at fame, featuring something similar to the Home Shopping Network, with the band playing the song. Maybe MTV saw the video's message, because Phillips would tell Stereogum that it didn't receive a lot of airplay on the network. He would also slam MTV, telling the LA Times, "I don't think the sale of art is an evil thing. People have always bought art. The weird thing MTV does is that they're not selling songs. They're selling personality and celebrity, which has no value at all. I think celebrity is fairly evil," he'd remark. The band would release a stopgap record in 1995 titled In Light Syrup, which went gold and consisted of B-sides and rarities. The band would release their final record of the 90s with 1997's Coil, producing one hit single with Come Down. The album would prove to be the band's highest charting of their career, peaking at number 19 on the Billboard 200 charts. The band would even package free concert tickets with Coil in select cities. Fans who bought the album would get free admission to these concerts, at least according to MTV. By 1998, the band was done calling it quits. Their inability to finish work on their 6th album in their hometown resulted in the band breaking up. Phillips would tell Rolling Stone amid the band's breakup, "In recent months, it's become harder to keep everyone satisfied. It felt like if we stayed much longer, the tensions would hurt the music." Phillips would tell Stereogum almost 2 decades after their breakup that at that time, he realized that the band members outside of the music didn't have a lot in common. The band, however, would reunite on and off in the subsequent years until their permanent reunion in 2009, and the band would put out their latest record, 2013's Constellation. Up until 2020, they were still a touring act. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. We'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.